Title: After my husband's funeral. Sister revealed that her son is my husband's child and showed his will. I never imagined my husband's funeral would be followed by my sister trying to steal half my home. 3 months after losing Adam, the man I loved for 11 years, my sister Cassandra stood up at her son's first birthday party and claimed that little boy wasn't her boyfriend's child at all. He was Adam's. She waved around a will that supposedly left half of our $800,000 house to him. Everyone gasped. My parents looked crushed. Strangers stared at me like I was seconds from collapsing. But instead of crying, I nearly laughed, because Cassandra had no idea what Adam and I had kept hidden for years. If you've ever dealt with family betrayal, make sure you like and subscribe. You'll want to hear exactly how I turned the tables, because the truth wasn't just shocking, it proved Cassandra's entire story was impossible. Adam and I met 12 years ago in the most unexpected place, a charity auction for children with cancer. I was volunteering, organizing silent auction items, when Adam outbid everyone on a watercolor painting of the Boston skyline. The second he won, he walked right over and handed it to me. "I saw you looking at this all night," he said with a smile that made his blue eyes crinkle. "I think it belongs with you." That was Adam, thoughtful, observant, generous. The very next night, he asked me out, and it felt like I had known him forever. He wasn't just a brilliant corporate attorney. He was humble, the kind of man who remembered the waiter's name and asked real questions about their lives. 8 months later, he proposed on the harbor, the actual skyline behind us reflecting the same painting that brought us together. Soon after, we bought a Victorian home in Beacon Hill for $800,000. It was a stretch, but Adam had just made partner, and I was building my reputation as an interior designer. The house had peeling paint, creaky floors, and a small garden where I imagined our future children playing. But those children never came. For years, we charted, planned, and hoped. We tried in vitro fertilization 4 times, draining our savings and our spirits. After the last failed attempt, Adam held my hand in silence the whole ride home. That night on the porch swing, he said, "We can still have a beautiful life, you and me. That's enough." He meant it. We rebuilt our dreams. We traveled, renovated the house room by room, and poured ourselves into our careers. When I launched my own interior design firm, Adam was my biggest supporter. Our life wasn't what we planned, but it was still full and beautiful. Cassandra was 4 years younger than me, but she had always lived like rules were optional. Where I worked hard, she coasted. Where I built a business, she bounced between jobs and boyfriends. My parents constantly worried about her, which meant they excused her behavior over and over. And if I achieved something, Cassandra needed to one-up me. When Adam and I started dating, suddenly she was chasing law students. When we bought our Beacon Hill home, she whined about her apartment for months, fishing for my parents to help her upgrade. It was endless competition I never asked for, but Adam always said, "She's your only sister." Family is important, so I kept trying. Then came Tyler, a tattooed bartender with a motorcycle, the kind of man our parents hated on sight. Their relationship was a storm, loud fights, dramatic breakups, and teary reconciliations. And then, out of nowhere, Cassandra announced she was pregnant. I'll never forget Thanksgiving dinner, the tears, the speeches about the miracle of life. The sting was sharp. After years of heartbreak and failed treatments, she had what I wanted most. By accident. But I swallowed my jealousy. I was determined to be the best aunt I could be. When Lucas was born, I was at the hospital with flowers and a blanket I had knitted myself. Cassandra, meanwhile, seemed overwhelmed from day one. She called me constantly, crying about sleepless nights, begging for help. I stepped in whenever I could, sometimes taking Lucas overnight. Adam, though, kept his distance. I thought it was just our infertility making things painful for him. He was polite, kind even, but always detached when it came to Lucas. Looking back, I realized there was a reason for that. And then came the morning everything changed. Adam's sudden headache, the rushed hospital call, and the words no wife ever wants to hear. He was gone, just like that. It was a Tuesday morning when Adam said his head hurt. Just a migraine, he insisted. He kissed me goodbye and left for work. Hours later, the hospital called. By the time I got there, it was already over. A brain aneurysm. Nothing could be done. Adam was only 36. The days after blurred into a haze of funeral arrangements and endless condolences. Friends showed up. Adam's colleagues sent flowers. Neighbors brought casseroles I never touched. But Cassandra, she was nowhere. Excuses came by text. Lucas was sick. She couldn't find a babysitter. She stayed on the sidelines, sending half-hearted messages while I buried my husband. At the funeral, she finally appeared, only for a few minutes. She kept to herself, avoided eye contact, and slipped out before the reception. At the time, I was too shattered to question it. Later, I realized she had been waiting. 1 week later, it was Lucas's first birthday. The last thing I wanted was to plaster on a smile and stand in a backyard full of balloons. But my mother's voice echoed in my head. Family comes first. Adam would want you there. So I went. I walked into Cassandra's rented house with a wrapped gift in my hand, dark circles under my eyes, and a hollow ache in my chest. Inside, whispers stopped as I passed. Strangers stared. My parents sat stiff at a picnic table, avoiding eye contact. Something was off, but I blamed it on everyone not knowing how to act around a widow. Then Cassandra came out, Lucas on her hip, her hair freshly done, her voice bright as she called for attention. And that's when she dropped the bombshell, the kind that cracks a family wide open. Cassandra stood in the center of the yard, Lucas perched on her hip in a tiny bow tie. She tapped a plastic spoon against her cup until the chatter fell quiet. Her voice rang out clear, rehearsed, almost theatrical. Thank you all for coming to celebrate Lucas's special day, she began. Then her eyes locked on mine. There's something I need to share, something I can't keep secret any longer. Lucas isn't Tyler's son. He's Adam's. The air froze. My father stiffened beside me. My mother stared at the ground, and gasps rippled through the guests. Cassandra continued, voice steady like she had practiced it in a mirror. Bridget's husband and I had a brief affair 2 years ago. It was a mistake, but Lucas is the result, and Adam knew. Before he passed, he updated his will to provide for his son. She pulled a folded paper from her purse and held it high. This will states Lucas is entitled to half of Adam and Bridget's house, $400,000. Every eye turned to me, pity, curiosity, shock. My parents looked stricken, whispering to each other in disbelief. But instead of breaking down, I felt laughter rising in my chest. Not because it was funny, but because her story was so outrageously impossible. I could barely hold it in. I calmly asked to see the will. One glance told me it was a fake. The language was wrong, the signature forced. Adam had been a lawyer. He never would have drafted something that sloppy. I folded the paper and handed it back. Thank you for sharing this, I said evenly. But we'll discuss it another time. Today is Lucas's day. And with that, I walked away while the whispers exploded behind me. Cassandra thought she had trapped me. What she didn't know was that Adam and I had already prepared for this exact kind of betrayal, and the truth made her entire claim impossible. Standing in that backyard with Cassandra's so-called will in my hands, I felt something strange, an urge to laugh. Not because betrayal was funny, but because her story wasn't just cruel, it was impossible. 2 years before Lucas was even conceived, Adam had surgery. He'd been dealing with a varicocele, painful swelling that needed correction. The surgeon recommended combining the repair with a vasectomy, explaining that it would protect Adam's health long term. It was the hardest decision we ever made as a couple. After years of failed IVF and the emotional wreckage that came with it, choosing permanent infertility felt like burying the last shred of hope for children of our own. But Adam wanted a healthy future with me, and I wanted him alive more than I wanted a child. The surgery worked. The follow-up tests confirmed it. From that moment on, it was biologically impossible for Adam to father a child. Cassandra could hold up forged papers all day long, but no signature in the world could undo a vasectomy confirmed by medical records. But that wasn't the only reason I stood there, almost amused. Adam had been careful. He knew Cassandra too well. He knew her jealousy, her habit of crossing lines, the way she competed with me even when no one else noticed. And instead of ignoring it, Adam prepared. Every time she sent him a late-night text that crossed the line, every time she showed up uninvited at his office or lingered too close at family dinners, he told me. And we wrote it down. Screenshots, dates, details, filed away in a folder Adam half-joked was our insurance policy. And then there was his will. Adam wasn't just any lawyer, he was meticulous. Months before his death, he sat down with his mentor, James Wilson, and finalized everything. The document was airtight, notarized, witnessed, filed at the firm. It left everything to me, our house, our accounts, every asset in his name. No loopholes, no vague clauses, nothing Cassandra could twist. So while she held up a fake will in front of our family, mine sat locked in a bank vault. The real one, the only one that mattered. The more she spoke, the more she dug her own grave, because she had just turned petty family drama into something far more serious. What Cassandra didn't realize in that moment was that she wasn't just embarrassing me with lies. She had committed a crime. Waving a forged legal document in front of witnesses, claiming inheritance of nearly $500,000, wasn't just audacity. It was fraud. It was forgery. And it was punishable by prison. She thought she had me cornered. In reality, Adam had outplayed her years earlier, and now all I had to do was decide how and when to bring the truth crashing down on her head. Driving home from that birthday party, the forged will still burned in my mind. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly I could see the whites of my knuckles. I hadn't cried. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't even confronted Cassandra. Instead, I kept hearing Adam's voice in my head, steady and calm, the way he always was when life threw punches at us. Document everything. Prepare for the worst, even if it never comes. The laughter I'd swallowed in the backyard finally broke free in the silence of my car. It wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was the bitter sound of disbelief, because the audacity of Cassandra's performance was almost comical. To parade a forged will in front of guests, to announce her lies over paper plates and balloons, it was pathetic, but it was also dangerous. That night I barely slept. I went over every detail Adam had left me, every document tucked away in our safe deposit box, the medical records from the vasectomy, the notarized will drafted by James Wilson, even Adam's journal entries about Cassandra's advances. He had prepared all of it, almost as if he knew she would try something one day. By morning, the laughter had faded. What remained was resolve. Cassandra hadn't just embarrassed me. She had waved a felony in my face, and I wasn't going to let it slide. I made 2 calls. The first was to James Wilson. His voice was heavy with sympathy when I explained what had happened. But by the time I finished, he sounded more angry than I was. "Bring me the forged document," he said firmly. "This is bigger than family drama, Bridget. If she thinks she can get away with this, she's in for a rude awakening." The second call was harder. James recommended someone, Frank Delaney, a retired detective who now worked as a private investigator. I hesitated before dialing, wondering if I was ready to open the door to a deeper ugliness. But then I remembered the way Cassandra had smirked as she held up that forged will, like she had already won. That image was all the motivation I needed. When Frank answered, his voice was blunt, no nonsense. I explained the situation, my words tumbling over each other as I laid out the mess Cassandra had created. He didn't flinch. He just asked questions, dates, names, financial details. Everything Cassandra had been hiding in the shadows. He wanted dragged into the light. "Give me a few days," he said at the end of our call. "I'll dig. And if your sister's desperate enough to try this stunt, I guarantee she's left tracks." As I hung up, I felt the first spark of something I hadn't felt since Adam died. Control. Cassandra thought grief had made me weak, but she was about to learn the one thing Adam had always believed. When you prepare for the worst, you strip liars of their power. And I was ready to strip Cassandra of hers. 3 days later, Frank called me back. His tone told me everything before he even spoke. "We need to meet," he said. At James Wilson's office, documents were already spread across the table when I arrived. Frank didn't waste time. "Your sister is drowning in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, even medical bills for Lucas. Over $75,000 in total. She's also 4 months behind on rent, facing eviction by the end of the month." He slid a copy of the notice toward me. My stomach tightened. "And there's more," he continued. "Her boyfriend Tyler? Gone. Moved to Seattle with someone new. He's barely sending $200 a month in child support, and even that's inconsistent. Cassandra is alone, broke, and desperate." He placed another stack of papers in front of me. Text messages between Cassandra and her friend Jenna. My hands shook as I read them. "Adam's death is terrible, but maybe this is my chance to finally get what I deserve. The house is worth at least $800,000 now. If I play this right, I'll have a nest egg for me and Lucas. The will is almost ready. Dave's good with Photoshop. He found Adam's signature online from that charity auction. Looks legit." Every line felt like a blade. She hadn't just lied in the moment, she had planned it, bragged about it, turned my husband's death into an opportunity. "There's one last thing," Frank said quietly. "I ran a background check on Tyler. He's got domestic violence charges from a previous relationship. And there's a warrant for unpaid child support in New Hampshire. He's not someone you want near your nephew." Silence hung in the room as I stared at the evidence spread in front of me. Debt, lies, forgery, a dangerous father figure. Cassandra hadn't just betrayed me. She had tried to rewrite Adam's life, our marriage, everything we built, just to dig herself out of her own mess. And now, I had enough proof to end her scheme once and for all. James leaned back in his chair, adjusting his glasses as he scanned the forged will one more time. "This isn't just sloppy, it's criminal. If we hand this to the district attorney, Cassandra could face felony charges. Fraud, forgery, attempted theft of property worth hundreds of thousands. Prison time is a very real possibility." The word prison echoed in the room. I pictured Lucas, still a baby, visiting his mother behind glass. The thought twisted my stomach. "What if I don't want to destroy her completely?" I asked, my voice low. "What if I just want this to stop?" James studied me for a long moment. "Then we use leverage. We don't go public, not yet, but we confront her with everything. The medical records, the real will, the investigators' findings, the texts. She'll have no ground to stand on. Once she realizes that, we can negotiate. But make no mistake, she'll only back down if she knows the alternative is worse." I nodded, though my heart was pounding. I had spent weeks drowning in grief, but now I was staring at a different battlefield altogether. "Set it up," I said finally. "I want her to face me. No more games." The next afternoon, Cassandra showed up at my house. She walked in with that same smug confidence she'd worn at the birthday party, as if she still believed she held the winning hand. I had the folder of evidence on the coffee table and the recorder James advised me to use sitting beside it. Massachusetts law required both parties' consent, so I made it clear from the start. "I want this recorded," I said evenly, "so there's no confusion about what's said here." She gave a short laugh. "Fine, I've got nothing to hide." I pressed record. "Then let's start. Tell me again how Lucas is Adam's child." Her story spilled out almost word for word as she'd told it at the party. The supposed affair, the secret promises, the revised will Adam had supposedly signed. She sounded rehearsed, certain, like she'd repeated the lie to herself enough times to believe it. When she finished, I leaned forward and slid the first set of papers across the table. Adam's medical records, I said calmly. 2 years before Lucas was born, he had surgery. Part of that surgery was a vasectomy. Confirmed successful. It was medically impossible for him to father a child. Her smirk faltered. She picked up the papers, scanning them with wide eyes. These could be fake. They're not, I replied coldly. And his doctor will testify to that under oath if necessary. I placed the second document on the table. This is Adam's real will, properly notarized, properly filed. It leaves everything to me. There is no version that mentions Lucas. Her face lost color. Then he must have... No, I cut in sharply. The document you waved around was a forgery, a poor one. And forgery of a will is a felony, up to 5 years in prison. I didn't stop there. I pulled out Frank's file next. Printouts of the messages she had sent Jenna, the eviction notices, the trail of debt. We know everything, Cassandra. The plan, the Photoshop, your debts, Tyler leaving. All of it. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, slowly, her shoulders slumped, and the mask cracked. Tears welled up, and her voice shook. I didn't know what else to do. I'm about to lose everything. I thought if I could just get something from the house, I'd be able to take care of Lucas. Her sobs filled the room. But I didn't reach for her. Not this time. You didn't just lie to me, I said, my voice steady. You tried to destroy Adam's memory. You tried to rob me while I was still bearing him. That isn't desperation. That's cruelty. Her crying only grew louder, but the damage was already done. She wasn't fooling anyone anymore. Now it was up to me. Press charges and watch my sister go to prison, or find another way to make sure she never pulled a stunt like this again. Cassandra sat across from me, tears streaking her face, but I didn't move. The weight of everything she'd done pressed between us, heavy and undeniable. James's words echoed in my head. Fraud, forgery, felony. She had crossed a line that couldn't be undone with a few tears. This doesn't just go away, I told her flatly. You've committed crimes, Cassandra, and the only reason you're not in handcuffs right now is because I'm giving you this chance to do the right thing. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't send me to jail. I'm your sister. You should have thought about that, I cut in, before you lied about Adam, before you forged his signature, before you stood in front of our parents and told them their son-in-law betrayed me. I pushed a document across the table. You're going to sign a confession, admitting the will was forged, admitting Adam never fathered Lucas, admitting you made it all up. It will be notarized and filed with Mr. Wilson. That way, if you ever try this stunt again, you won't just be my problem, you'll be the court's. She hesitated, tears spilling over again. If I sign this, what happens to me? You stop the lies, I said coldly. You face your debts on your own. And you raise your son without dragging Adam's name through the mud. That's the best offer you're going to get. Her hand trembled as she picked up the pen. For the first time since this began, she looked small, beaten. She scrawled her name at the bottom, the ink shaky, the page blotched with tears. When it was done, I switched off the recorder. It's over, Cassandra. You tried to destroy me when I was at my weakest. But Adam was smarter than you gave him credit for. And now everyone will know the truth. For once, she didn't argue. She didn't sneer. She didn't smirk. She just sat in silence, staring down at the confession she had signed. Her last attempt at power crumbling into nothing. A week later, I gathered my parents and Cassandra at my dining table. The air was thick, everyone knowing why they had been called, but too afraid to say it out loud. I placed the recorder in the center of the table. We're documenting this, I said. No arguments. My father frowned. My mother looked uneasy, but neither objected. Cassandra sat stiff, eyes red. The same document she had signed already filed with James Wilson. Now it was time for her to face the family she had humiliated. Tell them, I said. She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. I lied. Lucas isn't Adam's son. Adam and I never had an affair. The will I showed at the party was a forgery. I made it up. My father's face turned pale. My mother gasped, clutching her chest. Why would you do such a thing?" she asked. Cassandra's eyes filled again. "Because I was broke, because Mark left, because I was about to lose my home. I thought if I could get half the house, Ethan would be secure. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. "You didn't mean to destroy Adam's name? You didn't mean to humiliate me in front of everyone we know? You forged legal documents, Cassandra. You planned this." Silence fell. My father shook his head in disbelief. "I don't even recognize you." Cassandra buried her face in her hands, sobbing. My mother moved as if to comfort her, but I held up a hand. "Number enough enabling. She needs to sit with what she's done." My mother froze, torn, but didn't argue. For once the excuses weren't coming. I leaned forward, looking directly at Cassandra. "You will never again use Adam's name. You will never again try to take what isn't yours. If you do, that confession will be in the court system before the day is over. Do you understand?" She nodded miserably, her whole body shaking. The dinner ended with no food touched, no hugs exchanged. My parents left in silence, carrying the weight of knowing their younger daughter had tried to destroy their elder. Cassandra walked out last, shoulders slumped, no parting words. I closed the door behind her, locked it, and for the first time since Adam's death, I felt something close to peace. She had tried to strip everything from me, but now the truth was written down, permanent. If she ever tried again, the law would crush her, not me. Adam had prepared me for this, and Cassandra had finally learned that I was not someone to be underestimated. Then it needs a closing reflection, short, sharp, and final. Viewers want closure, proof of justice, and a note of strength, not a soft charity ending. Here's how it flows out cleanly. After that night, I didn't look at Cassandra the same again. She wasn't just my sister anymore. She was the person who tried to rob me while I was burying my husband. The signed confession sat in Mr. Wilson's office, filed and sealed. If she ever slipped back into her lies, it would be the end of her, not me. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I poured my energy back into my work, into renovating the house Daniel and I had built together, into living the life he always believed I was strong enough to carry on. People ask if I forgave her. The truth? Forgiveness isn't the point. Accountability is. And Cassandra finally faced it. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this. Never underestimate the value of proof. Emotions fade. Lies crumble. But evidence is permanent. Have you ever had to confront a family member who went too far? What did you do? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.